So I'm Laurel Hiltz. I'm with Seldovia Village Tribe, and we also have Crystal Collier. She's the president and CEO of SVT. I'm the marketing director, and we also partner with the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce. And Crystal is the president of the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce, and we thought this would be a great way to connect both agencies for Seldovia in a way that we can bring this information to the community. And not an unfamiliar face to us is Tim Dillon, former city manager for Seldovia and the director of the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District for the entire Kenai Peninsula. And he's here today to talk to us about the effects on the economy as a result of the coronavirus, and also the hopes and the resources and the things that are available for business owners. So thanks to everybody who has joined us. Just a reminder that if you have a question that you'd like to chat, you just, if you're inside of Zoom, you can click on the chat icon and then type your chat in there. And then I'll bring that forward to Tim or Crystal with any questions you might have. Thank you. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to spend some time with you all. As you mentioned, KPED is a separate corporation. We do not answer to the feds, the state, or the borough. We operate under contracts. We do a variety of different things when it comes to economic development, not just on the Kenai Peninsula, but also statewide. So since all this stuff started, we have been trying to assist wherever we could to make sure that our small businesses, for-profit and nonprofit, were taken care of, and that we could try and assist moving down the line. When you start looking at the short-term and the long-term impacts, it's really more of a guessing game. And I was actually on the phone with somebody from Seldovia here a couple of hours ago, and my suggestion to them was, you don't want to set yourself up for failure. You want to be positive with what you're doing and all, but you also want to be realistic. So if you set your goal that, hey, we're going to be back up and running full blast by sometime in September, I don't think that's too far-fetched. If something happens before then, that's great. But realistically, the idea that you're going to be up and running and people are going to be, going up and down the street by Memorial Day, it's not happening, just because of all the other things that are here. So what I've been recommending to folks is, as they're doing their planning, try and think outside the box from a timing standpoint and look towards September. So when you're trying to figure out what do you do and how do you do it, our biggest clients are the folks in Alaska. They're the ones that keep moving down here to the Kenai Peninsula. Over 50% of the additional people that have been moving in the last couple of years to the Kenai Peninsula are actually from somewhere else in Alaska. They're not coming up from the lower 48. They're coming from Alaska. And that's partially because of the quality of living and the ability to do different things. So think of things, use this time not to waste your time, but to do some planning and to do some thinking. Sit back and say, you know what? This gives me an opportunity. I wonder where I want this business to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And do some what ifs, so that as you're doing your planning and trying to figure things out, it makes a little more sense. Now, one of the big impacts that I've gotten this question a lot, and I wanted to start off with, is insurance. Folks need to go back and look at their insurance for their business. There normally is an interruption clause in your insurance. So if your business is interrupted because of something like the virus, sometimes there's dollars that you can recoup from there. It's not going to be all, but potentially a percentage. One of the things one of the reasons why this actually came up from somebody down on that end of the peninsula here a week or so ago, because they were under the impression that the legislature had passed something that after the last virus that occurred, that insurance companies could put a waiver in there that would exempt any kind of a virus. That actually went to the state legislature and it was not passed. So if anybody is concerned about that or is saying, hey, my insurance company is telling me that they don't need to pay up on this, that's not accurate. Now, the thing that may be accurate is, just like we all potentially can have a waiver for you want to include earthquake insurance or tsunami insurance or whatever, you can go ahead and accept that or not. So take a hard look, and I know this is going to get old after a while, but if all else fails, read. Read your documents that you have. Remember when you bought your insurance policy. Remember when you all these different things that we do with a business. You wind up with all these pieces of paper that you got to start reading the fine print, because that's where these kinds of answers are. So from a long-term and short-term, we're going to be okay. We're all taking care of each other. I actually monitor a variety of different Facebooks here on the Kenai Peninsula, and I'm just so proud of the community of Seldovia and how well everybody is acting and reacting and protecting each other and making sure that people that need things are getting taken care of. And I encourage you to keep doing that. In the long term, things are going to look different. It's just that plain and simple. But that's not to say that that's bad or that's good. It's just going to look different. So we need to start taking those opportunities for real. I think probably the biggest thing that you're going to see is how we've all embraced technology to some extent, but you're really going to be embracing technology coming out of this thing. I see great opportunities, especially on the educational side and the workforce development side. We're actually working with the Denali Commission and with the folks over at Avtech, and then an inventor up in to work on some workforce development that is completely 3D, and it almost reminded me of one of my kids' games that they were playing. And you as teacher actually are up there in the corner keeping an eye on what's going on. So there's lots of cool things that I think are going to come out of this thing. So positive, and remember that you're going to have to change the way you're doing business and what you're doing. And I know I used to have a comment that some people used to shudder when I'd say it when I was in Seldovia, but remember, the only person that likes change is a baby with a wet diaper. So we get that. Everybody, you just need to chill and relax, but change is coming and you have to be part of it. Resources that are available. There's lots of different resources out there. When you start talking about the Small Business Administration and some of the dollars that are starting to flow, remember that this document and the whole CARES Act, 800 and some pages, it was produced in the shortest amount of time possible. In order to kind of compare it to things, remember that we had that earthquake, and that earthquake was in 2018. The Borough Assembly, less than a month ago, finally approved the recovery dollars for the damages that were done to some of our schools here on the Kenai Peninsula. So, and that was fast-tracked in order to get there. We even started to look, whether it be the Swan Lake fires or the Homer fires from last year. So for them to put this together and put it together so quickly, there's lots of, I don't want to call them mistakes, but lots of areas where hopefully they will be improved, because there's questions all over the place. Probably the best example I can give you, last Friday, I was on a call with the head of the small business development for the entire state of Alaska. And we had been on a call the week before that, and we were talking about, okay, what's going to be the best ways to push out information so people could, be able to understand what they're looking at and how to fill out some of these forms. And it was decided that small business up in Anchorage they were going to get started with some YouTube videos. And they started that a week ago yesterday, so a week ago Monday. On Friday, when I was talking with John on the phone, he was very, very frustrated. And that was because he had just gotten another piece of paper that changed things one more time. And he was going to have to start over doing these YouTube videos for the 8th time in less than a week. Things are, they're moving. I spoke with one of your community members earlier today, and they were saying, you know, we were printing out the information, and before it all came out of the printer, we got another email that said, oops, by the way, this has changed or that has changed. So you have to remember that as you're looking for information, make sure you look at what's date stamped and what the date is on things for any of the different resources. Besides Cliff over at Small Business Development, ourselves, we're answering one call after another, trying to assist people, helping them through the process. Remember, this is the first time that anybody can remember that nonprofit organizations are qualifying for part of the CARES money. So if you're involved with a nonprofit, remember that, and as the information becomes available, if you've got questions, please let me know. Time standpoint, let's talk the two different pieces. You have the payroll protection plan, which the information, in fact, I was with a bank president here a week ago week and a half ago when it was all announced about what was going to happen. And I said to him, I said, wow, that's a pretty big undertaking. That's how much adjustment do you have to make with that? And he looked at me and he said, Tim, he said, this is the first I'm hearing about it. I said, oh, okay. Well, right before I got on this call, I actually made a call to a branch manager from one of the local banks. And he said on Thursday night, he got a copy of, this is kind of a preliminary idea of what we're thinking about maybe doing. And then everybody was able to start applying on Friday. So he said, you know, we've had people knocking our door down trying to apply. The concern with the banks right now is they don't want to set the bank out. They don't want to put the individual business out, but there's still way too many questions and not enough answers. So we're being told that they're working on that this week. So the payroll piece will hopefully have some of those answers. The other loan program hopefully will have those answers. I can tell you, one of the questions I've been asked here recently is, how many people do you know of that have completed the process? And the process is not that bad, which is good. But when you file online for the basic loan package, where the concern is people are thinking, first of all, that they're going to get a $10,000 advance, and that $10,000 advance is based on the number of people you have working for you. So a smaller operation is not getting $10,000, but nowhere does it say that. So that's one of the pieces. The other is, I did something similar to this last Friday with the community of Homer with their chamber. And there actually was somebody that I knew of that actually was on the call, and he agreed to speak. And he had applied right as soon as they had opened everything up. He had gotten his confirmation number and everything, but the idea that he had money in his bank account 3 days later, he was still waiting, and it was 7 or 8 days later. So please understand that I think they're pretty aggressive timelines, but they're not going to work. It's taking time, and again, it's because of this system that they're using right now is set up to be deployed whenever there's a disaster or an emergency. Normally, it's in a certain region, whether this is the same system that was engaged when we had the earthquake. It's the same one when you saw some of the hurricanes in the southeast, but it's normally just in a regional area, so you normally don't see the entire country involved, and it's basically bringing the system to its knees. So you just need to be aware of that. We more than anything else, I think it's very, very important for people to continue to read the fine print. I think one of the things that people are going to get themselves in trouble with is the fact that they don't know or when they look at things, they're looking at things as grants. You have to remember, especially with the payroll piece, it's a loan. Potentially it will turn into a grant. And I hope that 100% of the people that apply for it wind up with it as a grant when it's all said and done. But there's some pretty tight parameters on it as far as how quick you have to spend the money, what you have to spend the money on, what your organization has to look like coming out the other end. And unfortunately, a lot of our seasonal and tourist type operations don't lend itself for this kind of a program. But reading the fine print with everything. The other thing you have to remember is you can apply for something and then just turn it down if you get approved. You do not have to accept something that you've been given. You can decide, hey, you know what, this would be a great opportunity, but I don't think this is what we need or what we're going to do. I spoke to one business here recently, to take a hard look at where do they want to go and what do they want to be doing in the future with their organization. Is this a time, technically it says this isn't time for you to restructure your loans, but if you can do some creative writing and looking at your business plan and how does it help you and the community, then you go forward with that. One of the things that we did was, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as you're sharing, I'm dropping links into the chat of different website resources, starting with the kped.org, which is your website, and then other things like the Small Business Association and economic resources here in Alaska for businesses, as well as the Alaska bdc.org, which is specific to COVID and is full of all the resources that you're referencing and links and access to applications. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So wanted to talk for a couple minutes about the survey that we did. Here 2 weeks ago, I was really concerned about what I was hearing and some of the concerns, and we didn't even know what questions we should be asking or what we could be doing to help. So along with some of our partners, we put together a 15 question survey, and my goal was to have 200 or so businesses from the Kenai Peninsula respond so that we could get a good baseline. Because as you can probably guess, I was getting a lot of phone calls from Senator Murkowski's office and Senator Sullivan and Congressman Young, and then the folks down in Juneau saying, what's going on there? What do things look like? How are people feeling? So we had the survey from March 20th to March 27th, and I can tell you there were a variety of people down that end of the peninsula that did participate. But we kind of knocked it out of the park. We had 721 businesses across the borough go ahead and fill out the survey and send it in. And my friends down in Southeast and in Anchorage, they had done something similar with a questionnaire, and we actually had more than Anchorage and Southeast combined participate. So I feel real good about the numbers and things and the participation. One of the big things, and I'm sure that, I'm not telling you, Crystal, anything new or you, Laurel, but tourism and hospitality made up 28.2% of the businesses that responded. And I think we're very, very diverse. There were 19 different types of businesses and things that were represented. And I'm going to be giving, the end of the month, I'm going to be giving a full slide deck presentation on the survey. But I've got to tell you that between the comments, which I think that the comments were probably more valuable for me than anything else, but it was also very, very depressing to read. One of the comments was, earthquake, fires, now this. What else are we supposed to go ahead and handle? Some of the people just, patients are afraid to leave their homes to seek care. Self-employed, massage therapist, maybe I should say was a self-employed massage therapist. The person said, children, have stopped coming since their parents have lost jobs, vendors quarantine in other states. And, there really wasn't a pretty picture. The last graph is probably the scariest out of the whole thing, but I think it gives us an opportunity to try and, people being able to think through things. And that is your business at risk of closing permanently because of the impact? And we had 24%, 24.2% saying yes. But the scariest part was that 44.1% said they were unsure. So by adding the two together, you've got 68% of the businesses that responded that they're not sure what's going to be happening. There was only 31.7% saying, we're going to be fine, we'll figure it out, not a big deal, and we can go from there. But it's really kind of scary when you start looking at those kinds of things. So let's talk a little bit about accessing funds. And there's two sets of funds. So let's you have what's coming through SBA now, which will be the capital disaster loans and also the payroll protection. The other monies that are going to come through to the state of Alaska are going to be a variety of other areas to try and assist with the economy. I know that the tribe is going to be heavily involved in parts of it. In fact, there's a carve out for the tribe. There's also carve outs for nonprofits, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the tough parts right now is trying to figure out what the guidelines are and what the plans are. So we are hoping, and we've been told that the week after Easter, we will have some of those guidelines. Our partners at ADA plus ourselves will probably be pretty involved in the dispensing of some of those dollars. We have been approached by the state. In fact, one of the last things the legislature did was made sure that the ARDers were put in as one of the ways that the monies could be dispensed. Having said that, I'm all for that as long as I know what the rules are and what the guidelines are. Perfect example, commercial fishing. There is a pullout of $300 million towards fishing. Well, anybody that's been around Alaska for a while knows that $300 million is not a lot of money, especially when that $300 million gets spread around the entire country. So my guess is we get 150, 180 million, 200 million at tops. When you start putting into the mix your commercial fishermen, your processors, your sport fishing, your subsistence fishing, your dip net, you put all the different people that are involved with the fisheries. I think it works out to be like $12.85 a person, maybe. Again, $300 million is not a lot of money. So what we want is to be able to have some good guidelines and parameters so that we can go to people and say, here's what you can do, here's how you do it. So that's the one pot of money. And as I said, we're not going to know much about that until after Easter at the earliest. The things that we do know now is, the working capital disaster loans and the payroll. First question I get asked a lot is, can you apply for both of them? Yes, you can. The key, though, is the payroll one comes with a lot of hoops, and you have to have spent it all by June. So, and when you start looking at, and I think, there's 8 or 10 people online right now, and I'm sure several of you have looked at, okay, this doesn't really work for a seasonal business. This doesn't work for a tourism business. Well, you know what? You're 100% correct. And those are some of the things that we keep harping on the feds with, how do we make some of this work? Because here on the Kenai Peninsula, we've got a lot of tourism and a lot of hospitality. The loans, you go up to $2 million. Interest rates, just so that you know, and this has gone back and forth, but the latest we've been told, and this is as of yesterday afternoon, is small business will be at 3.75, and most private nonprofits will be at somewhere between 2.5 and 2.75. The terms are up to 30 years. What can you use the loan funds for? Fixed debt, which would be things like your rent, your payroll, your accounts payable, and some of the bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. Does that mean you can go out and buy a brand new boat and a brand new engine? Probably not without some creative writing, but there probably is a way for you to do it. But my guess is just coming out of the blocks that that's probably not a use that's going to get approved. There's also, from an eligibility standpoint, as long as you're under 500 employees, which is what we're talking about in Seldovia, I think, everybody, you're eligible for those things. But to give you a little bit of an idea of just another war story, Girdwood and because of how the federal government counts people, they are saying that Alyeska, because of their winter employment and things and all the part-time people, that they have more than 500 employees and are not eligible for any of this money. So again, I don't think you guys have to worry about, there's nothing that I know of down on the peninsula that you're going to have about those things. You also have to remember that from an ineligible standpoint, illegal activity as defined by federal guidelines, yeah, that's not going to be covered. There are also principal with a 50%, if one of the principal owners that owns 50% or more is 60 days delinquent on child support, you're not eligible. So there are some different areas, if you're in lobbying, no, you're not going to get any money. State, local, municipal government entities are ineligible. So there's all those things, and realistically, they're looking for an acceptable credit history and your ability to repay the loan. You can, and one of the other things that keeps getting pushed back is deferrals. I've seen everything from 6 months to a year, and who knows where it's going to stick. A couple ineligible uses of the loan: you cannot use it for dividends or bonuses. You cannot use it to disperse monies to owners of your company unless they're performing a service. So say like if you're one of the two owners and you actually are working behind the counter, yeah, you can get paid. But if it's just your dollars that you normally just get because you're a stockholder, yeah, you can't do that. You also, they're saying that you cannot expand your facilities or acquire any fixed assets. That, from what I'm being told, may or may not flesh out. Again, it depends. And the other thing that they don't want you doing is refinancing long-term debt. But I have seen some creative things that people are looking at and how they're doing things. Relocation is another thing that eligibility for the loan is out the window. What kinds of information you need? You need gross revenues. You need your goods that you sold, any lost rents, cost of operating, any other reimbursement that you're going to receive, and especially they want to know if you've got business interruption insurance and if you have been able to claim anything. That's kind of the long and the short of it. There, as I said, if you one of the other problems that they've got right now with the forms is that if you make a mistake on your form and you've pressed send and then you go back and you realize, oops, I made a mistake on this on the gross income or whatever, you basically have to start over at this stage. They're trying to fix the glitch, but right now you can't go back into your file to make that correction. So that may cause some issues and things. You may be asked for things like federal income tax returns, current year-to-date profit and loss statement. And again, some of this stuff, you have to be real careful on the dates because a lot of it has February 20th on it. And as you all know, February 20th is a lot of businesses aren't up and running on February 20th. So please make sure that you're paying attention to that. The paycheck protection, when you're looking at that, it allows you to have funds for up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. You can also use that to pay interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. And again, that entire loan may be forgiven. If it's not forgiven, the interest rate on that is going to be 1.25. It starts on April 3rd, and it's available only until June 30th. It shuts off, and you've got to have your expenditures done by June 30th. Small businesses, everything from eligible nonprofits, veterans organizations, tribal businesses, sole proprietorships, self-employed, independent contractors, things of that nature. There is, and if you'd like me to, Laurel, there's a very good slide deck that I came across from West Virginia that describes all these different pieces of the funding. And if you'd like, I could send that to you, and
Yeah.
you all can use it on your Chatterbox. Because if somebody goes through this, they'll be able to figure things out pretty easily. I got a kick out of it being from West Virginia because, as most of you know, when I speak and I talk about the Kenai Peninsula, it's roughly the size of West Virginia. So we have that little connection there. So if you'd like, I can send you that and any other document that I'm speaking from.
That would be great. That would be great. And then we'll post that onto the Chatterbox. That'd be excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the KPED bridge loan. We can go up to $25,000. If you are in a pinch, and especially with some of these things that you're not going to see for 7 weeks, the key with us is we don't want to compete with a bank. We've got a small revolving loan program. We've plenty of people between here and Seldovia that we're working with currently. If you go to our website and you go to the tools bar and you just roll down from there, I think it's the sixth one down, it says micro loan, and it's got all the information that you would need. I ask that people take a look at that before they call me, but then they can easily just give me a call, and I'd be more than happy to walk them through and make sure that it makes sense. There are some collateral pieces to that, but we've loaned money on a variety of different things, as long as I can prove to, depending on the dollar amount, up to $5,000, which $5,000 is a lot of money at this stage right now, especially if you've got only just one employee or something trying to just make it through the month. The key, though, too, is that it's a little bit more expensive than some of these other loans. We're at 4% plus prime. So, you're talking about 8%, somewhere in around there. Again, it's one of those things we can turn it around rather quickly. It's Caitlin and myself and my board. So as quick as we can do those things, we do that. So that's a little bit about the bridge loan. The last thing that I wanted to try and cover is, what can you all be doing today to help with recovery? And I happened to pull this information earlier today. When I was asked around a year ago to head up the census complete count committee for the Kenai Peninsula Borough, I said, sure, not a problem. And it's really been a lot of fun getting the information out. And I know you guys have done an unbelievable job with getting the word out and things. My concern is the response rates. We need to keep those with an uptick. You guys are still, Seldovia is still in single digits right now. And I would like you guys to, and the good part is when you have smaller numbers, you get 10 people to go ahead and do the census, and all of a sudden you've risen X number of points compared to some of the larger communities. But our goal, the borough back in 2010 had a pre-response rate of 43.2%. Currently, as a borough, we're at 16.5% after being open for 6 days now. So I ask that if you should be saying thank you to Courtney, because she's probably the one that did the work, the design work and things. But the more that we can be pushing that out, it means a lot of money to not only the Kenai Peninsula Borough, small communities like Seldovia. So remind people they don't need a PIN. I was so glad that Sue Hex jumped in there the other day, and she's one of the staff members, and said, no, you don't need a PIN number. You don't need a code. Just get online and be counted. And that's what we're hoping people will do. So that's kind of an update of what's going on from an economic development standpoint. And I figured I would open it up to questions now, or comments, whatever you guys had.
Thank you so much, Tim. Crystal, are you available to just kind of add a few comments? And I don't, folks who are still on the line are able to type in questions in the chat box. You just look for the chat icon, click that, and then you just want to make a chat to everyone. All right, hearing none and seeing none, I think we're doing really good. Tim, I put the link to the 2020 census in there as well for the group. And I think we had a power pop, and so Courtney just checked in to make sure we're okay. I'm gonna just check and see if Crystal's available. Hang on a second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it sounds like she got called out, so I think we'll leave it at that. And again, on the Seldovia Chatterbox, there's a number of posts from the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce that have information in regards to the Small Business Association. The Chamber has also emailed out to members links and other information. We have stuff here in the chat that you can just click on those and it should populate to your browsers. And then as Tim said, please take the time to do the reading online first. I'm sure he's getting inundated with a fair amount of information, but go ahead and if you find that you're not finding the information that you need, then reach out to him and he'll be able to help you with that as well. And again, please sign up for the 2020 census. Go ahead and get your responses in. And I'm a single person with no children in my household. It took me about 3 minutes. It was pretty quick.
Just got to remember, 10 questions, less than 10 minutes, and 10 years worth of funding. So let me give you my my office phone number is 283-3335. So if people have questions or need things, let us know. I'll be more than happy to take your call. And Laurel, I'll send you that West Virginia document and see if I've got anything else that may help. And any of those things, just feel free to put it up on the chatterbox. And again, thank you for the last thing is the last Monday of the month, I'm actually presenting at the city council via Zoom.
Okay.
And by then I'll have some even more information and be more than happy to try and answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Tim, and to everybody who joined us today. Thanks for joining in with this technology and trying it out. We're super glad that we're able to get everyone connected. Even if we're not seeing all your faces, we're glad you're there. And again, thanks for joining us. So thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye now.
All right. Bye now.